So welcome once again to this course of journey. And we were repairing our ship, and we will be completing the repair work this day. So I think all of you are happy, isn't it? So we will be finishing off our repair work this day. So as usual, let us make a very quick review. So Uncle discussed about four-stroke diesel engine, and you know right now it is a cylinder. Basically, it is a cylinder piston assembly, and it has got a connecting rod to connect your piston to crankshaft, which makes the to and fro motion of your piston into a rotary motion, because we are actually interested in rotary motion. Actually, we have to propel our propeller of the ship. Then we discussed about camshaft. Camshaft, by definition, it converts, actually it generates patterns from a rotary motion. Then Uncle discussed about a superposition principle, which you should keep in mind always, which means that however complex a problem might be, you can crack down it into simpler portions and solve each portions, and then assembling them together, you would get the answer for the complex problem. So actually, all the hardware items were discussed in the past 3 sessions of this module. And right now, we have to think about some subsystems of our engine, which makes actually the engine alive. To make the engine alive, we need operational. To make the engine operational, we need some subsystems. So this day we will be discussing mainly on these subsystems. So basically, most important subsystems are: 1, the cooling system, then lubricating system, inlet air system, exhaust gas system, fuel system, and cranking system. So we will take one by one, and we will discuss things about these subsystems. So very first, let us discuss about the cooling system.
Jens, should we tell why this is called subsystem?
Okay. Meaning thus, it means that okay, there we have got a hardware system there, and small systems are there in order to make the engine alive. That is why we are calling them subsystems of this engine, diesel engine. So let us discuss about cooling system very first. So let us think about the efficiency of heat engines very first. Do you know what is meant by efficiency?
Sir, more efficient.
Okay, I need the definition of efficiency. What we mean by efficiency? If we are thinking about an engine, what do you mean by the efficiency of the engine in terms of its input and output?
So the item works very well.
Oh, okay, somebody answered, Rishikesh, and said it has more power by low fuel. Okay, in that case, we will tell that it's a more efficient engine. actually efficiency is a ratio between output and input. A ratio between output and input. And the efficiency will always be less than 1. Will be always be less than 1. Meaning that no engine will give us an output equivalent to the input. So do you have any guess on the efficiency of heat engine? Anybody? A guess on the efficiency of heat engine in terms of percentage? Okay. Actually, heat engines are very, very low efficient engines, and their efficiency is less than 40%. 40%. So the 40% of the input is converted into a real work in a heat engine, and near 60% of the heat energy produced in the heat engine is dissipated away from doing real work. So this heat will excessively heat the engine. Initially, it will heat the cylinder. Basically, the cylinder will be excessively heated. If we are unattending them. If we are not cooling it, it will get excessively heated, and eventually a thermal breakdown will happen. Your engine will be damaged. If there is if we are not cooling your engine, a thermal breakdown will happen to your cylinder or your engine. So there must be a cooling system in your engine, because the excess heat has to be taken away in a better way, not to damage the engine. So what we do is we will build a metal jacket to the cylinder, keeping a space in between cylinder and the jacket. You can see this. See the picture. There we have got piston, connecting rod, cylinder, and all those things are there. And there is an outer jacket for that cylinder. And you can see green colored regions there. Actually, those portions are actually space for circulating your coolant to cool your engine. So please wait for a while. There is a small technical problem. Let me connect my mouse to the system.
So the presentation is not moving?
No. It's okay, Satish. So you can see the mouse pointer right now. Am I okay? Okay, Satish? Okay. So this is the cylinder. You can see the cylinder here, cylinder and piston and other components are there. So this is the cylinder, and to that actually we are generating an outer jacket here. And in between we have got space. So through this space, we will circulate either treated water, actually in large engines or in ship engine or such large engines, we will be using treated water as coolant. And small engines in your diesel car and all those things, you will be using coolant for that purpose, specially made coolant for that purpose. Okay, and then you can see some other portions as well, colored in green. So all these are coolant, circulating coolant. So by circulating coolant through these spaces, we will keep the engine at a desired temperature. We will keep the engine at a desired temperature. So this is the basic of the cooling system. So we circulate treated water or coolant through the spaces generated, and we will cool the engine. And after cooling the engine, the water which is coming out, or the coolant which is coming out, will be at an elevated temperature. So we will take that water into a radiator system, which will cool off this coolant or water, and this will be reused for cooling the engine. So the cooling system is a closed system. Coolant will start circulating through the spaces in the engine, and after cooling it, it will go to the radiator to get it cooled, and it will again circulate through the engine to cool the engine. So this is the cooling system you can see in your car. So the colored portion consists of the cooling system, diesel engine cooling system. So here here is coolant recovery system. So this is the coolant. From there, it will get into the radiator. It will run through the radiator, and it will go to the engine. From there, it will circulate through the engine, and it again will get into the radiator, get cooled. So like such, the engine will be continuously cooled off. And there is another small system here. You can see another system here. Actually, it is meant for heating the engine. So uncle will discuss about this thing later. So you just keep in mind that there is a heating system as well associated with this cooling system. Just keep in mind. So cooling system is over. Our first system is over. Then we are reaching to the lubricating system. So our engine is a mechanical system, and there are many moving parts for this engine. The piston, cylinder, and all those things are the crankshaft, camshaft, all are moving. It's a highly dynamic system, So each of these moving parts has to be lubricated for better operation, has to be lubricated. So in order to lubricate this, we will pump lubricating oil to these portions for our lubricating purpose. And as far as lubricating oil is concerned, it is something like blood for our system, blood for humans, or blood for biological system. So it is actually similar to that the lubricating oil system of a diesel engine can be compared to the blood circulating system of a biological system. And I will tell you why. Because lubricating oil system is the most important of these subsystems. Actually, our lubricating oil will do four main jobs. Four main jobs. As the name indicates, it lubricates. It lubricates the moving portions. It lubricates. Then it cools. We found a cooling system, a dedicated cooling system for our engine, but the lubricating oil will also cool the engine. Actually, the lubricating oil will be running inside the cylinders and all those things. All the portions, it will be running through the inside of your cylinders, and a huge portion of the heat generated in the cylinder will be conveyed to the lubricating oil, and in the lubricating oil also cools the engine. Then third portion, third quality or third job for the lubricating oil is it actually cleans the engine. It cleans. After the third stroke, or after the power stroke, the inner side of the cylinders will be deposited with carbon and other debris. So actually the lubricating oil helps in cleaning the inner sides of the cylinder with the help of a scraper ring, which we put around the piston. Uncle told in the last class that your cylinder and piston won't make contact. The contacts are generated by piston rings, and one of the rings is specially called as a scraper ring. So the lubricating oil will come and moisturize the carbon deposit inside the cylinder, and while moving down, the scraper ring will wipe out all these deposits, and it will be deposited into the lube oil sump. So actually it's the lubricating oil together with the scraper ring cleans the inside of the cylinder, or cleans the engine. And the fourth job the lubricating oil does is it neutralizes. Actually, our fuel, the diesel, after burning, it has got a sulfur and all those component, which will give an acidic residues inside the cylinder. So after the combustion, the cylinder will be acidic in nature. So while cleaning the inside of the cylinder, lubricating oil also neutralizes the inside of the cylinder. Otherwise, it will be the cylinder will be damaged at an earlier date. So lubricating oil it has got a basicity. You know what is acidity and basicity. So lubricating oil are generally has got quality of basicity, so it neutralizes the acidity of the inside of the cylinder. So lubricating oil is doing these 4 major duties. It lubricates, it cools, it cleans, and it neutralizes. So you have to take very care about the lubricating system of your engine. So this is the picture of a lubricating system. So together with the engine assembly, there will be a sump at downside. At the downside, there will be a sump, lubricating oil sump. From there, pump will collect lubricating oil from here, and it will go through a filter system. Here we have got a filtering system. We have got 4 chambers are there. 4 filters are in series here. So it will go through these filters, which purifies the lubricating oil, and it will go into the cylinder, and it will lubricate, and it will do the 4 duties for it assigned for it. So there is another opening here given to the lubricating oil system. From the crankshaft body, from the engine body, there will be an opening for lubricating vapors to escape into atmosphere, or actually they will be collected and given into the fuel tank. So while running your engine, the level of your lubricating oil may go down, because some quantity of your lubricating oil will be escaping as vapor from the engine. So from time to time, you have to look at the level of the lubricating oil, and from time to time you have to top up. Sometimes you will be, as far as small engines are concerned, you will be topping up the lubricating oil for a while, and at some particular time, you will be totally replacing the lubricating oil, because after a long period of operation of your, let us say, car, the lubricating oil, the quality of lubricating oil will get deteriorate all the way, and it will lose all the quality of lubricating oil. So at that time, you will be removing all the lubricating oil, and you will fill it with new oil. So in your car, the maintenance is counted by looking at the kilometers. So at some particular kilometers, let us say after 30,000 kilometers or 60,000 kilometers, the engine manufacturer, your car manufacturer, will be telling that at 30,000, you have to replace the lubricating oil. At multiple of 30,000 or like such, it will be detailed in the manual of your engine. So you have to take care of that as the manufacturer is advised, you have to take care of the lubricating oil. From time to time, you have to top up it and at particular interval, as said by the engine manufacturer. You have to replace the damaged or deteriorated lube oil by fresh oil. Here, actually, at one side here, we have got a lubricating oil cooler as well. So if the temperature of the circulating oil gets to a elevates rather than a particular value, here you have got some valves here, automatic valves here. So your lubricating oil will be pushed through a radiator system, and it will be coming this way and going into the engine. So together with the lubricating oil, a lubricating oil cooler also will be there. Okay. So we formed two systems. One is cooling system, the other one lubricating oil system. So this is another system. Okay, lubricating oil system, something like your car engine. So it is a 4-cylinder engine, and it also gives an indication to your dashboard, a dial gauge, regarding the level of your lubricating oil. So when it goes to a particular value, you have to top up, and at particular level, you have to replace the lubricating oil. So the next is inlet air system. So uncle is actually taken the picture of a small, let us say, your car system. So air in the car, actually in all the machines, air will be sucked to the engine cylinder through a filter. So in your car, you will be seeing such a small filter. So air will be coming through to the engine through this filter. So we will get a filtered air to the engine for the suction stroke. Then another system we have got is exhaust air system. Exhaust air is system is somewhat similar to inlet air system. The exhaust air in the fourth stroke, it will be pushed to a manifold, meaning that a pipeline, and then it will be pushed to the atmosphere through a silencer system. In all of the engine, you can see a silencer system in the exhaust gas path. One of the points you have to note is that this exhaust air is highly toxic. So this is what we call as a turbocharging system. Turbocharging system is what is meant by a turbocharger. Let us look at what is a turbocharger system. So we have got the engine cylinder here. So cylinder will be, piston is here. It will be making strokes here. So at one stroke, exhaust gas will be pushed to the exhaust gas line, and it will be going, and it will actually, in most of the engine, it will meet a particular unit called as a turbocharger. A turbocharger is nothing. It's basically a compressor unit. And uncle in the very first class, I think, said about increasing the volumetric efficiency of a particular engine. For that, what we have to do is the inlet air has to be compressed and has to be given to the cylinder, through which we can increase the volumetric efficiency of the particular cylinder. So by this, we are actually injecting more dense or compressed air will be given to the cylinder, so that we can inject a little bit more fuel into this unit. So your engine will be giving more power. So turbocharger do the compressing job. So actually a turbocharger doesn't need operational cost. Turbocharger is operated by the heat in the exhaust gas. Uncle earlier told that a heat engine, 60% of heat engine is given out as in the exhaust gas. Nearly 60% of the heat is given through the engine. So through the exhaust gas. So this exhaust gas can be used to do work or used to run a turbine here. The exhaust gas will be coming and meeting the turbocharger turbine wheel very fast. Turbocharger turbine. Okay, so this wheel get rotated, then it will go out into the atmosphere. So this rotating this wheel will do one thing, that it will, again, a compressor unit is here. So the ambient air which is sucked by the engine will get compressed and it will be given to our diesel engine. So in a sense, actually the overall efficiency of our engine will get improved a little bit by this turbocharging system. Okay, this is what we known as turbocharger. So along with turbocharger, a charge air cooler must be there. Actually, after compressing the air, its temperature will get elevated to a undesirable level, so that it has to be cooled before it is given into the engine. Okay, uncle is guessing that all of you are following me. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Any doubt? Is there any doubt? Somebody tell me. Okay, Angle is assuming that you are following. Okay. So this is the turbocharging system. All of the diesel engine right now we have got at the market is of a turbocharged system. Then another subsystem which is very important is the fuel system. So this is the schematic of our fuel system. So you have got a diesel tank. you know, your car has got a diesel tank here. So diesel will be circulated through this system by a diesel circulating pump. Diesel will be circulated through this circuit. Again, a closed circuit. Diesel will be collected from here. There is a filter here, so your fuel will be filtered, and there is again another fine filter is here before it is being served to the engine. So again, there is an injector pump is there. This is diesel circulating pump, then an injector pump. Actually, this pump will collect the diesel from here, and it will pump through the fuel injectors to the cylinder at very high pressure. Actually, the fuel injector here, this is the fuel injector. It has got very fine spores at its tip. So the diesel has to be pumped through these very fine spores to the cylinder. So a special injector, actually the diesel will be pumped at a pressure of the order of 300 bar. It is a very high pressure, So we need a very special injector pump here. So this will pump diesel through these very fine spores to the cylinder. Actually, while going through the very fine spores of these injectors, we will tell that the diesel will get atomized, so that all the diesel which are pumping into it will be burnt in the third stroke or power stroke, and no fuel is kicked out unburned. That is why we are injecting fuel through these fuel injectors, which are injecting fuel in a very fine particle, as very fine particles. Or the fuel injector will atomize the fuel which is being pumped through it. So this is the fuel system. So you know that the fuel will be continuously consumed by the working engine. So you have to your fuel will be getting depleted in a very quick fashion. So you will be taking your car to the petrol station to fill your diesel tank. So the fuel system is over. So you can see here another picture here. You can see the fuel injector here, fuel injector, and diesel will be injected to the cylinder body here through the tip. At the fuel injector type, we have got very fine spores. So through the spores, diesel will be injected. So we have to generate a very high pressure to this diesel system. Here you can see the valves, inlet and exhaust valves here. Actually, these valves are spring-loaded valves, and here you can see the camshaft. Camshaft will be pushing these valves at appropriate stop time against this spring. So after the cam is gone, the piston will be pushed back to its setting. So that valve will normally it will be in a closed position. Okay, this is your piston crown skirt. You can see connecting rod portion here. There are piston rings here. One of them is scraper rig. So this is okay. This is the inside story of your diesel engine. So another very important system is cranking system. Actually, right now you know the working of heat engine or a diesel engine, and you know that a heat engine can't start their operation on its own. Actually, it must be put into a condition in which a sustainable amount of power is being produced. You have to put the engine into that condition. So that is what we call as cranking, initial cranking of the engine. So in a battery system, in a small engine, let us say in your car, a motor system, a starting motor, a battery operated starting motor will do the initial cranking, and in very huge machines, it is being done by compressed air system in big engines. So let us see the cranking system of a car. Let us say a car. So here what we do is we will keep all other systems. Let us say lubricating system, fuel system, cooling system. All the other systems will be in operation. We will put all them in operational condition, and we will rotate your crankshaft up to a certain RPM. Let us say 90 RPM. So your car has to be rotated till 90 RPM. Then the pistons will generate, power strokes will be generated inside the cylinders, and it will give the cylinders will give out power, and then the engine will pick up the speed and it will give out more and more power. So initially you have to rotate your crankshaft to a particular RPM. That is what is called a cranking system. So in your car, what we are doing is actually here you have got an electrical motor, and you have got a gear system here connected to your crankshaft. So initially, for a particular time, you will keep this system operational so that your engine will be, your crankshaft will be rotating, and it will be reaching a particular RPM in which the power strokes will get generated, and then the engine will go on working. So look at it. So here you have got a battery. So from the battery, current will be coming here, and it will be operating this motor. And the solid line is what we call as a power circuit, and some dashed lines are here. These we call as the control circuit. So there is a power circuit and a control circuit. Actually, we control the power circuit through this control system. So you can see that your car key is given to this, and this thing actually works as a switch. When we put your car key to its jacket, to its slot, and you have to turn the key to a particular position to start the engine. At that instant, when you are turning your key, it will act as a switch, and this switch will be closed, and it will further close another switch, a solenoid switch. Let us say solenoid means electrically operated switch. Another switch will be operated, and the power will operate this electrical motor, and engine will get cranked. So in this control circuit, you can add any number of safeties. If you think that your lubricating oil level is a little bit lower at a lower side, and if you feel that while operating engine will damage the engine, you can put a safety here. So the safety will be looking at the level of the lubricating oil in your engine, and it won't close if the level is lower than a particular level. So your engine will be saved. So this is the cranking system, initial or starting system of your engine. And in order to stop the engine, what you do is, normally you will cut out the fuel. The engine, you cut out the fuel, the engine will slowly run out of fuel, and it will be stopped. That is the normal stopping of an engine. So Uncle told that in big engine, in a ship's engine, in order to crank, what we do is we will use compressed air for cranking the engine. So in the cylinder head, there will be another port to admit the starting air. So in this particular system, what we actually doing is we will try to simulate the power strokes. A control system will look at the cylinders, and the system will be there. So which all cylinders are to be starting the third or power strokes at that particular those particular cylinder compressed air at a very high pressure will be given to that particular cylinder, so that crankshaft will be rotated and its RPM will get increased, and the cylinders will start generating the power, and the engine will get started. That is the story of big engines. So we have completed our course now, and Uncle will be giving some tips for your purpose. So let us for the engine starting, there are two particular startings are there. One is cold starting, and let us say other one a normal starting. Cold starting means an engine which has been in a non-working condition for a long time, and its temperature and all is very low condition. In that case, a diesel engine, in particular a diesel engine, has to be elevated to a particular temperature. So what we do initially is that we will, prior to the starting of a big engine, a pre-conditioning will be done. In that step, we will heat up the engine. In that particular system, through the cooling system of your engine, you will circulate heated water. So engine will be, your temperature will be elevated to a particular level. So then in that preconditioning, you will also start up your lubricating system as well. Lubricating system. These two systems will be started earlier, then on, and your engine will be preconditioned to a better level in the sense of temperature as well as lubricating point of view. Your engine is ready for starting, then only you will try to start your engine. That is the cold starting. And if the engine is working for a frequently, you don't have to go for a cold starting procedure. If it has got a particular temperature, we can readily start the engine, start the cranking, and start up the engine. And another thing you have to keep in mind is engine loading. While any heat engine, whether it is petrol or diesel, no engine has to be loaded abruptly. So engine manufacturer will be giving you a loading chart. So you have to mind that graph. So you have to load the engine in a very slow manner. Otherwise, what happens is extra thermal stresses will be given. You are actually giving extra thermal stresses to your engine cylinder, and cylinder may break down. It may go damaged. So while maintaining your car, or prior to the starting, prior to the starting, you are not supposed to give a full throttle to the engine, meaning that you have to keep the engine in just started position for a little while, for a let us say 2, 3, 4, or 5 minutes. Then only after reaching a particular temperature, only your engine has to be loaded. And your engine has to be maintained in a proper way. Your engine manufacturer will be giving a maintenance guide for you. So you have to go through those guides, and you have to abide by the rules depicted in it. And another important factor you have to take care while driving your car or running your engine is you have to look at the dashboard for indications. So modern cars will give more and more indications, the temperature of your cooling system, your lubricating oil system status, and your car tire pressure, and all these things can be read from your dashboard, and you have to give some respect to these indications. And one another important factor this has to say is that never put extra fittings on your car rather than recommended by your manufacturer. This is a very important thing you have to keep in mind. You can see some cars and all those things with something known as crash guards fitted at its front. So actually, that crash guard will make more damage. Actually, your car is designed in a way that at the front side, it has to take, when it hits a obstacle, it has to take the impact and it has to damage very fast. Otherwise, the damage, the shock will get transferred to you, the driving person, very fast, the travelers. So by putting a crash guard at your front, another obstacle at your front, you are actually damaging a safety feature of your car. So never put such things on your car rather than recommended by your manufacturer. So these are some tips until so basically uncle has completed the module. Our ship is right now okay, and it is ready to be cranked again, ready to be started again. So I think it was Rishikesh who asked me a question in the very first class. His question was, this diesel engine will be, he made a comment that it will be making more vibration. Is Rishikesh here this day? Okay. So I think Rishikesh is absent this day. So should I answer this question, Sadish?
I think he was there for some time, but I think he had some connection issues.
Okay. So I am, for the time being, I'm skipping it. So the thing is, we have completed our second phase of our journey right now. Second phase of our journey. In the first phase, in a sense that I have completed 2 modules right now. In the very first module, we had more courses were there. In the second module, 4 classes were there. So I completed 2 modules. And my question is to those who followed me in these 2 modules. So did you feel any difference between these 2 phases? This is a yes or no question. I think, is Jinsha here? Jinsha, did you feel any difference between these 2 phases? It's a yes or no question. Oh, yes. She is saying that, yes, she did feel a difference. So the difference is this. In our first phase, we discussed science. It was pure science. We were discussing some theories, experiments, and all those things. We started it with a hypothesis. Then we went through some experiments and all those and we proved that hypothesis. And we actually discussed scientific things, what we call as science. And in this phase, Uncle discussed what we call as engineer. So that is the difference between science and engineer. So Uncle had given a definition for science in the first module. So Uncle is to give a definition for engineering right now. So could anybody help me in defining engineering? Could anybody help me in defining engineering? What do you mean by engineering? Okay. So actually engineering is dealing with applying scientific principles. So scientists are interested in finding out what we call as truths or scientific facts. And engineers are actually interested in, they are the people who apply these scientific facts into practical applications. So a diesel engine, a heat engine is a practical application of a scientific fact. So I think you have got a small, right now you can distinguish between science and engineering. And I will ask further one more question. Whom do you admire most? A scientist or an engineer?
Sir, engineer.
Ritesh is saying that it is engineer. He will be respecting an engineer very first. But uncle will be respecting a scientist very first. Because if a scientist is not there, engineer is not there. Engineer can't do that.
Only create the scientific theories, and if there are no scientists, then engineer's job only.
Yes, Ritesh. So we have to respect scientist very first. Actually, uncle is an engineer. So as an engineer, I have to respect scientist very first. If a scientist is not there, they are relentlessly doing their work. Day and night, they are all the way they are working. If they are not there, an engineer won't be here. So Ritesh, did you change your mind?
Sir, but if there are no engineers, also scientists can't use their knowledge. So
Pardon?
even if there are only scientists, then they can't use their knowledge on practical skills. So I would always be with engineering.
Okay. So that is the difference between science and engineering. So you people are actually in 9th, 10th, and 12th standard. So after the 12th standard, you have to make a decision whether to go into the science stream or in the engineering stream. So you have to keep in mind these things. That I think you got the difference between science and engineering. So when you are in 12th, think about it. So at last, I am giving a small assignment to you with the help of your father or other elder people in your home. Identify the subsystems of the heat engine you have at your home. So most probably your home will be having a car or a scooter or like. So with the help of your father or your uncle or like an elder person, try to identify the subsystems of heat engine you have at your home. That is the assignment uncle is giving to you at the end. And there is a warning: never try it alone. Never try it alone. Only with the help of an elder person, you try to do this assignment. So right now it's question time. If you have any doubt, you can ask me.
Sir, instead of petroleum and diesel, are there any other fuels we can use?
Okay. We can use right now. You have got compressed natural gas, then gasoline, other engine, like such. All such fuels can be used. And actually in your ship, you will be using a fuel. You will be using a fuel which is termed as heavy fuel oil, HFO.
But all these products are done by petroleum only, no?
Correct. Actually, while all these products, petrol, diesel, and all those things, all these things are the products of crude petroleum refined. So, the crude oil will be digged from under the earth, and it will be refined at refineries. So there are two types of fuels in this process. Very first, they will classify them into two types. One is light fuel oils, and then heavy fuel oils. Your petrol, gasoline, then diesel, all these are light fuel oils, LFOs. And then under them comes another category, which are known as HFO, heavy fuel oil. One is particularly known as low sulfur heavy stove, LSHS. You can see such trucks. If you look at in the road, you can see diesel trucks, petrol, then LSHS trucks. Some particular trucks, if you notice that there will be written as LSHS. So this fuel is being used in ships and all those things, some heavy fuel oil. So most these ships' engine are designed to work on these heavy fuel oils. They are more efficient at these oils. They can run on diesel as well, but they are more efficient at while running at HFO.
So like in low fuel oils, right? There is name like petroleum and diesel. Like in HF oils, like is there any petroleum or product which has a name?
Actually, I didn't get your question.
Sir, in low fuel oils, right? There is petrol and diesel. But in high fuel oils, what type of, like, what are we using? What oil we are using?
HFO, huh?
Yes.
You mean HFO. In HFO, as fuel, we will use LSHS, low sulfur heavy stove, then furnace oil. Another oil is furnace oil. Then you get bitumen, what we call as tar, which is used for making roads and all those things. These all are heavy fuels, heavy parts of the petroleum refining. Some other products as well. Okay, Riddhish? Okay, Riddhi? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. They are classified in terms of their density. These are more dense products. Then at a higher level, you have got low dense products, which are called diesel, petrol, gasoline, all these.
Okay, sir.
Any other question? Okay. Then I am winding up this session, and I think my intention was to give just some very basic idea of a heat engine tube, because all of you are familiar with these engines. So I just wanted to give an idea on the working of these engines. So you will have a better understanding of your the heat engine, what you have got at your home. So you can make a better maintenance or better running of the engine.